It is now 6:30. Call in the order, Trophy Club Mud One. We have a quorum. We have Vice President Rose, Secretary Treasurer Flynn, Director Chapman, and Director Castanway. All present.
No guest.
Was chastised on Facebook by a 4-year-old. So 2-year-old.
Make sure I had it correct.
Yes.
I'm not sure you got it there.
Close enough. Citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the board on any matter, whether or not it's posted on the agenda. The board is not permitted to take action on or discuss any comments made to the board at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. The board will hear comments on specific agenda items prior to the board addressing those items. You may speak up to 4 minutes or the time determined by the president or presiding officer. To speak during this item, you must complete the speaker's form that includes the topic of your statement. Citizens' comments should be limited to matters over which the board has authority. Are there any citizen comments?
There are not.
Hearing that, we'll proceed to the consent agenda. All matters listed as consent agenda are considered to be routine by the board of directors and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion on these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Item 1, consider and take appropriate action to approve the consent agenda. A, November 2018 check register. B, November 26 regular meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion by Secretary Treasurer Flynn to approve the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Director Chapman. All in favor? Any desire to remove anything? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 2, in regular session, consider and take appropriate action to appoint 2 directors to serve on the audit committee. Would you
Can I-
like to just explain what this is for the benefit
Sure.
of the new directors who may not understand?
So every year, we have to do an annual audit here. We just got done with our audit this last weekend of November. The auditors have come in the house and they've now left. They're working on the final numbers. I'm working on the final numbers here in December. Sometime in January, we're going to sit down with a audit committee, whatever selected by the board, and he will basically, the auditor, Rod, will go over the findings with you, anything they saw, any issues with the audit this year, with our numbers this year, and then we kind of talk about going in depth if you might have any questions on how the numbers are presented. The auditors right now are rearranging some of the numbers to a certain way that they have to do it for government financials, and then they'll present all that through this audit committee. And then from there, Rod will come to the next meeting in January to approve the audit from there.
Okay. Do we have any volunteers, or better, let's go the other way. Do we have anybody who definitely do not want to be on the audit committee?
Well, what's
I do not.
I do not.
Okay.
I know.
I just need to know what's involved in the audit committee, how many times we have to meet, when we're gonna meet, and that kind of stuff.
I can't answer when we're going to meet yet because the auditor's still working on numbers and I'm still working on numbers again. And sometime in January before the January meeting.
In the past, we've met one time, and it's a couple hours meeting.
Correct.
And it's normally whoever's on the audit committee, they'll work with staff and the auditor to arrange a time, and then you meet, go through.
As long as it's not during the middle of the day on the work week, I got no.
It would most likely have to be. Usually it is. Usually we'll try to arrange it because the auditor has to come in during their time too, while they're a working day for them to do it. The auditors aren't here locally. They're
Like somewhere north of here.
yeah, I
It's
can't remember the name of it now, but it's a couple-hour drive.
Yeah.
And so they would come over here, Rod, and usually the finance manager, and then the general manager would sit down, usually with 2 committee from the board, and we'll just kind of go over it. Usually it takes them more than 2 hours.
So that means you're eliminated?
If we don't have 2, I'll give it a try, but.
Well, I guess it's Bill and I
Again.
again. So, what's on?
Kelly looks like she's ready to
I
jump
was
in.
just gonna say, no, yeah, I'd like to see you two both on that, if you're both willing.
Make a motion.
I make a motion to nominate, I don't know how to do it yet.
Just say, I'd like to make a motion to
I'd like
appoint.
to make a motion to appoint, President Wilson and Vice President Rose for the Audit Committee.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Castanway to appoint President Wilson and Vice President Rose to the Audit Committee. Do I have a second?
I didn't want a second until I had some conversation with you guys. Up for that? Is that something you would consider? And, or do I have to second it to even open up the discussion?
According to our unofficial parliamentarian, yes.
Okay, I will second.
It's seconded by Secretary Treasurer Flynn. Any discussion?
Yes, I have discussion.
Please feel free to discuss.
Are you two gentlemen up for that? I guess my concern is I'd like to get new blood in it, just because you guys have been around the horn 1,000 times, and it doesn't seem like this is something where you'd have to have a skill set that's, over the top. You don't have to be an accountant. Well, I don't think, Stephen, you just need to understand policy and process. Am I saying that right?
Well, it's more, government financial is more than policy and process. So you have to, one of the differences, there's a difference in a private world and versus a public world, and you have to kind of understand the numbers. But that's what I'm there for. That's what the auditor is there for, to kind of help explain what you're looking at. And, we put the audit together, the audit's in a packet together so the general public can understand it. That's what it's there for.
I would be more than happy to defer my spot to you.
I'm not asking. My plate overfloweth. I absolutely cannot take anything else on, seriously. However,
I can't.
Like I said, I'm kind of constrained because I'm down in Dallas.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. We have 4 approved. Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Vice President Rose abstain. Motion passes 4-1 abstention. Okay. Item number 3. Consider and take appropriate action regarding lease payment agreement for acquisition of a Ford Q's Transit 350 demo unit, which is a camera van for the Water Department to be purchased through the buy board contract at the Rush Truck Center. A, adopt order number 2018-1217, authorizing the general manager to negotiate and execute the lease purchase agreement for the acquisition of the camera truck at a price not to exceed $206,000. And B, authorize general manager and district officials to execute documents as may be necessary and convenient for the district to acquire the camera van pursuant to the lease purchase agreement. Staff?
Yes. The primary reason this is back before you, you all approved it at our last board meeting. The primary reason is I had a misunderstanding that the accessories that were listed in the back of the listing were included. In fact, Bill asked me that after the meeting, and I said, yeah, they're in there, but in fact they weren't. So, the accessories that we budgeted $210,000 for this purchase, but it was a misunderstanding on my part that the accessory pieces that we're buying with it were in fact not included in the $193,000. So we're taking this opportunity to go ahead and get the approval for the lease purchase agreements. Again, I feel like we budgeted this in the debt service portion of our budget. That's where it is. It doesn't show up on our PAYGO capital budget. For me, the $206,000 on a $2.4 million wastewater budget is, a significant one-time rate increase is associated with that purchase if you do pay-go capital. So I think we ought to do vehicles that are of this expense, 200, 250,000 and up, on lease purchase agreements and spread the costs out over a few years.
Sure.
Question, Carmen. I'm looking at page 23, which is the purchasing cooperative buy board. Looks like, the agreement. What specifically am I looking at here from my accessory standpoint that wasn't in the previous one? Which line items, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Well, I wish I had that for you. I think so you're on page 23. Let me see if
I'm not sure if that's the right area. It seems to be.
Looks like on page 21 is where all that software is.
yeah, so
Bottom.
the things that were not included were the software and software support pieces. So, for example, Esri interface module GNet software. So that allows the software that runs the camera to interface with our GIS system, which we're kicking off right as we speak. The ArcGIS runtime engine is the software license that allows us to run that in the truck. And then there's an import module that allows you to take stuff from GraniteNet, which is the software that drives the camera, and import it directly to GIS. So those pieces were listed at the back of the purchase last month, and I was mistakenly under the impression that they were included.
So let me ask another. What is that specific amount for those items?
Yeah, so we're talking about the difference between all of the accessories we bought, which includes an awning for the back of the truck. So in the hot part of the summer, there's some shade. All of those took the price from $193,000
To the 206?
to 206. Actually, it went to 205,530. I think is the actual
503, yeah.
price.
Okay, so that's the difference. The 8,000 roughly.
12.5.
Yes, 12,500.
Yeah, 193. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I will note that in that list of accessories, there's one item that we do intend to buy, but it's called a GPS mapping stick. So it's got a GPS Trimble unit and a stick that allows you to go out to an asset, let's say it's a manhole cover or a valve cover or a meter box, and actually locate where it is using GPS and have that download into the truck. That will be as important for water side of the house as the wastewater side of the house. And we didn't have enough budget to buy that at this time, nor are we really ready for it. So I anticipate that we'll buy that combo, which is over $10,000 for the two of them, out of the general manager's discretionary budget line item.
Any other comments or questions for staff?
Sorry, one more. So this whole truck that we buy with all this equipment, all this camera equipment, is this a leased truck?
No.
It's a purchased truck?
It's a lease purchase agreement, just as the only way we can finance something for longer than 3 years without the Attorney General and TCEQ signing off on it.
There's an amortization schedule attached to as an appendix to the lease purchase agreement, and at the end of the lease term, it's deemed owned by the district.
Any other questions or comments?
And just for your information, the form of the lease purchase agreement will be identical to what was previously presented to the board, with the exception of some of the blanks for the description of the equipment and the dollar amounts. And I think that wasn't quite ready when the packets were prepared, so this order would delegate authority to your GM to enter into that agreement with a number of limitations to make sure it's clear what's being delegated.
Yeah, once we kind of lock this down, we can get the official interest rate from there, depending on what the prime is when we do this. But we're looking at a 5-year. Just kind of give some rough estimate. If we do a 5-year based on the interest rate I have now, we're looking at roughly 32,000 for interest during the 5-year.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Give it a try. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the lease purchase agreement for acquisition of a Ford Q's Transit 350 demo unit camera van for the Water Department to be purchased through the buy board contract at Rush Truck Center. Adopt order number 2018-1217, authorizing general manager to negotiate and execute the lease purchase agreement for acquisition of the camera van at a price not to exceed $206,000, and authorize the general manager and district officials to execute documents as may be necessary and convenient for the district to acquire the camera van pursuant to the lease purchase agreement.
So we have a motion from Director Chapman to authorize staff to purchase the Ford Q's Transit demo unit via lease purchase agreement through the buy board contract through order number 2018-1217 at a price not to exceed $206,000, and authorize the general manager, district officials to execute any documents necessary to effect this transaction. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion was seconded by Director Castanway. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 4, consider and take appropriate action to award contract 2018-121701 for construction of fence improvements at the water treatment plant as part of FY 2019 capital improvement budget. Staff?
We have been repairing the fence out here around the water plant. I know several years ago, I think maybe Rose and Wilson were on the board now when we put the fence around the backside of the water plant and come around Summit Cove, put a nice little concrete footer, a nice 10-foot fence. Well, now we're repairing our fence so much here, it's almost to the point where we can't repair it anymore. It just needs to be replaced. So we went out for bids. I know Fort Worth earlier this year come and replaced their little part right here, but we need to replace the rest of our fence, and it will mirror what we did around Summit Cove. So it'll all match.
Will that price, I noticed that Fort Worth didn't stain theirs. Will it include staining that portion of the fence and matching to what was previously replaced on the backside?
So I was not going to do anything around the Fort Worth vault because Fort Worth did that. And so I didn't want to take responsibility for, doing anything around their property there.
Okay. So it's going to remain unstained?
That's something that me and Carmen were talking about. We are going to do some restaining probably in the spring on the old fence just to keep it new. And we were talking about maybe just going ahead and having them stain that portion of it also, or just reaching out to Fort Worth and seeing if they will come stain it.
But that will not be included in this 62,
No.
in this portion of the agreement?
It will not. Now the new fence will be stained that they will be installing.
Okay. Yeah, because that, I think that really does need to be stained. It's going to significantly shorten the life if it's not.
I mean, if that's some direction you guys want to give us and do you want us to do that, I don't have a problem with.
Well, I think the concern would be if Fort Worth is then going to come back and ascribe to us any liability. So if we could get something from them that, excuse me, that they're not going to in any way turn around and that we're not assuming any liability by taking that action. I personally wouldn't have a problem with it. Be interested in hearing from the rest of the board.
I think it would look kind of goofy if that was the only part that wasn't stained.
I agree with you.
one, And the weatherability issue long-term, two. I mean, I can't imagine if we said, hey, if we're gonna eat the cost, I mean, we pitch it first to, they
It's
wanna
technically
pony up,
theirs. They have an
but if they
easement
didn't-
for that area.
then just a approval.
Yeah.
We can send them an invoice or deduct it from our invoice monthly.
Well, if we've got a contractor out there, perhaps they'd be willing to pay the incremental cost of putting up a new fence for them. Be cheaper than them hiring somebody to mobilize.
Yeah, they did just replace the fence this year, but they didn't stain it, so they just put wood, they had their crews come out and put up wood, but they didn't stain it, so. it's,
How big, Mike, how big is that? Trying to remember.
It's a pretty good size area. I would say it's 30 by 20, 25.
If the Fort Worth thing, if they weren't willing to pay for it, is there any way to go back and to Alliances, that's your recommendation, right? And say, hey, guys, we approve it, however, we got this one other thing, you're gonna be out there, you're gonna have brushes and stain anyway.
But we don't want to stay in somebody else's property without their consent.
Oh, no, I said you'd have to get that first, but if there's a cost issue, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, they'll be out here anyhow. At that point, I'm sure it's going to be a minimal cost. So we will
You would
definitely.
think Fort Worth wouldn't have a problem with this.
Yeah, I would hope not.
Protecting their property.
Only thing is, Fort Worth didn't move fast on this at all, so we were kind of like, I guess, putting some ropes up and kind of holding their fence together just so it wouldn't fall in the parking lot. And it took them literally like 3 months to come do something with their fence.
Okay, any other questions, comments? I'll entertain a motion. I'll make a motion that we award contract 2018-121701 for construction of the fence improvements outside of wastewater treatment plant.
Second.
Right, motion was submitted by President Wilson, seconded by Secretary Treasurer Flynn. Any other comments or questions, discussion?
Move to amend it. Move to amend the motion to include to Alliance Fence Company in the amount not to exceed $62,875.
Oh, that amendment is accepted. Do I have a second to his amendment?
I'll second it.
Amendment has been seconded by Director Chapman. Okay, so do we have to do it in the pieces? Okay, so let's vote first on the amendment to include the not to exceed price and the awarding of that particular one to
Alliance
Alliance
Fence.
Fencing.
Well, Greg, if you would accept Bill's
Yeah, I
proposed
wouldn't think,
amendment, then
yeah,
we can
it
just have
shouldn't,
one-
yeah, it should just one
on the
vote.
amended motion. If you'll accept it, yeah, then we're good.
Oh, parliamentarian over here.
Second, accept it.
We didn't
was
even need a
accepted,
second
yeah.
if you accepted
Accept
it.
it, yeah. Okay. Does everyone understand the motion that's on the,
Second of the primary maker.
does
Go
it-
ahead.
Who
Go ahead.
seconded the motion? I didn't catch that, I'm sorry.
which
The motion regarding the fence at the water plant.
Director Chapman?
Okay, that's what I thought.
All right, everyone understands the motion as presented
And as amended.
and as amended? Okay, appears everyone does. All in favor indicate by raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Item number 5, consider and take appropriate action regarding the November 2018 combined financials and variance report. Secretary Treasurer Flynn.
As was the case last month, the first month, now the second month, there isn't really a whole lot there to really discuss. On the variance report itself, though, a couple items that I want to point out that you may looked at and scratch your head. under the water section for longevity, the wastewater section for longevity, as well as, I guess those two sections. So what that is, I'll have Stephen explain it better, but those are prepaid items up front, budget items that are budgeted all year, they're paid in November.
Yes, under all three departments, longevity, which is going to be the water, wastewater, and the admin side. Those are longevity checks for the employees that we budget out. That gets paid out right before Thanksgiving break. So it's basically each employee gets we have a budget, each employee gets X amount based on how long they've been here at the district.
So that's the
Those
only
get
thing,
paid out
that's the only thing I saw that you might have scratched your head and said, what's that about?
If you're trying to find the page, it's 110.
I have a couple of questions on page 62. Or points. We have down about a third of the way down the page, manhole rehabilitation. I think we mentioned it briefly last month, for approximately $5,000 for that one manhole. With 1,247 manholes, if they all had that same problem, we'd look at $6.2 million in potential expenses. Just to bring the board's thought process around that.
Is that one manhole?
Yes.
Okay, so what this was, the force main that runs along the service road, this is the first manhole, and it's actually a shallow manhole. It's only maybe 5 foot deep. This is where the force main actually stops being pumped and starts going gravity down, runs all the way down through Troon to Hogan's Glen and everything like that. So when those gases, you know, are pumped in there and everything, you get a lot more gas as well. It was kind of being ate up for that.
Mhm.
So we rehabbed it, and it's lined now,
Okay. I understand the
Yeah.
expense, yeah. The other
which is
thing,
weird because years ago we lined all the manholes down this line. For some reason, this one never got lined,
oh, it was not lined.
was not lined.
You've looked at the others,
We've
and they're
looked at
looking,
the others.
they're wearing well.
Yes.
Okay, good. Glad to hear that. I have a question also in that same area, on that same report. Pump disconnect, MBR number 2, and shipping for the pump to be repaired. If we have to add on a pump disconnect for that MBR, is that something we're going to be looking at all the other MBRs and the pumps?
I think that's probably something that I did. I don't want my non-electricians doing electrical work. So if it has to be dewired, I don't really think that's something our folks that are just ordinary operators and maintenance folks should be doing.
Okay, so would that be something that we should have had in the original engineering schematics for the building of that plant and that system? That it should have had a disconnect?
No, I think in this particular case, I forget which pump this was, Mike. We've had problems
So
with
says
this was
two.
the pump disconnect for MBR2. This was the wasting pump.
the one that was pulled out
Or no,
inappropriate.
oh no, I'm sorry, for pump number 2. Both of these are for the return pump, the return activated sludge.
Okay, so one of them was a warranty question because we had a installation problem from our perspective that the cables were installed inappropriately and they got sucked into the impeller, chewed it up. The other one, I believe, was a operator error, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we haven't got that one back yet.
But that's
Coming.
what this is for.
No, this is for, so we had a pump fail on MBR2. We had Weber and Keevan and everybody out there. We talked with Izzy with Kubota. Finally, it come out to be, it's like, okay, well, you need to get the pump unwired with very definitive description of how it's supposed to be shipped on a pallet, wrapped, that such. That's what the 938 is. That's for it to be shipped to Georgia with $20,000 of insurance on it because it's a $20,000 pump. So the 490, we actually had them come and disconnect that pump. We actually had them replace a plug or two around the wastewater plant too in that. So we just lumped that all together. That's how we had somebody coming out.
Okay, we
Let
have
it do
other
s-
pumps like this in the
Yes.
plant.
Yes.
Is there a possibility that gonna have the same issue with the other pumps?
What we did with the other pumps, and are starting to do with all of them, we are taking the cable off and we're replacing that cable with a stainless steel chain that will not go down there and get wrapped around in an impeller, and that we can pull the pump a lot easier with.
Okay. Call it preventive maintenance. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I do have, I guess I found one more on the variance report itself on page 111. We have a tank inspection, water inspection contract tank inspection. Is this ground storage tanks?
This is for ground storage and elevated.
Okay, so are we emptying those tanks for inspection, or what kind of inspection is
We
this?
do yearly, so every year they'll come out and do a visual of all of them. Every other year, we have to drain tanks, and they
Okay.
go in and do
Into it.
inspection.
Are we draining tanks this year?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is, I just would add to that, this is a third-party contract with Utility Services Incorporated. And our western storage tank up on Bobcat Drive is not included
That's right.
in that contract. So, yeah, I'd like to see it included. I don't know exactly how that plays out with respect to our contract with the town.
I think we had money that we were setting aside in reserve. I think it's a designated reserve fund for the purposes of maintenance on that west elevated tank.
I believe it was for painting purposes.
Strictly painting or inspection?
I think it was strictly painting purposes, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But I know we did start a reserve fund for painting that tank because they are expensive.
We need to check into that.
It's good to have professionals that know what they're doing, show up and do those inspections and take responsibility for it.
Yeah.
I've been exposed to one tank failure. It was pretty disastrous in my life. So I'd hate to see another one.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much the painting costs, but right now we're sitting at $225 in that account. Let's set aside for Gatsby for the elevated tank.
That's probably pretty close to what it's going to cost to paint that tank. I know the last time we did our elevated on TW King, it was around 200,000.
But that is, don't we continue to add to that fund?
That's correct, yeah. Every
So
fiscal year, we budget to add to it.
Yeah. So I mean, we add to it for the maintenance of that tank.
Correct.
And maintenance would
Continue
be
to grow.
the inspection as well as the painting, as I would understand it.
Yeah, we have no contract or anything on it, though.
Yeah,
That's
I
kind of
understand
where we're
that.
at right now.
Thank you.
Any others? Vice President Rose?
No.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the November 2018 combined financials and variance report. A, combined financials. B, combined variance.
Okay, we have a motion by Secretary Treasurer Flynn to approve the 2018 combined financials and variance report. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It was seconded by Director Castanway. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 6, General Manager reports and updates.
In your board packet, you have the written report. I'd like to call your attention to a couple of things, if I could. One, under regulatory update, the last item is this repair of the sewer main that's in the unnamed tributary to Lake Grapevine. I guess that's the best way of saying it. I don't know if that creek has a name. We just received over the, I guess it was last Friday, the report from our engineer on the permitting. I thought I'd just take a minute and read it to you all. So this is the conclusion of their environmental expert. The permittee must submit a pre-construction notification to the district engineer prior to commencing the activity if the bank stabilization activity, (1) involves discharge into special aquatic sites, 2 is in excess of 500 feet in length, or 3 will involve the discharge of a greater than an average of 1 cubic yard per running foot as measured along the length of the treated bank below the plane of the ordinary high water mark. Her conclusion was, since there would be no discharge into special aquatic sites, the project does not exceed 500 feet in length and does not involve the discharge of greater than 1 cubic yard per running foot along the bank, a pre-construction notification would not be required for this project. This project is permitted under NWP 13 and is considered environmentally cleared. So we're good to go on that, and we'll be moving forward with getting the, it's a minimal design, but I'm excited about that. We've talked to the homeowner. He's given us permission to use his driveway to get into that site. So I think we'll be getting that fixed in short order. We'll also be, I would add, we'll also be cleaning up some concrete and some abandoned pipe in that stretch behind his house. The old pipe that ran through there was it was capped with a piece of concrete that looks really bad. So while we're there, we're going to take that out and just cut off the abandoned piece of pipe. The other thing I wanted to bring your attention to was the high service pump project. We've been challenged with this during my time here. This was a project that was originally budgeted in the FY17 fiscal year for $370,000. To date, we've spent about $45,000 on engineering and bid phase services. We first bid it out in December of last year, so that would have been December of 17. All of the bids came in significantly higher than our budgeted estimate. We thought, based on advice of the engineer, that perhaps if we relax some schedules, there was a concern that some of the equipment couldn't be obtained within the schedule that was provided for in the bidding, that we might get more favorable pricing. That said, we went out for bid again, and all of the bids came in even higher than before. So we're not exactly sure how to move forward on this. It's a challenge. I guess our bids are good for maybe 60 days. But the choices are really to either bring back a request for the board to open the budget and add to it, or to defer it till next fiscal year and add it to the budget then.
How much difference are we talking about, roughly?
Well, basically, we'd have 325 left after engineering in the original budget, and 592 was the low bid. That was from a good contractor, one of our favorite contractors, actually, but still, it's a significant addition.
$270,000 more. Has there just been that much of a price increase since we did the last one, or do we know where we got the 370 from, how that so quickly became a unrealistic price?
So we've pushed this off actually for a couple years because we Took us about a year to get through engineering on it. We had our SCADA guy, I know worked with CPNY. I know CPNY switched electrical people, kind of while we were going through all this process. So the first time we went out to bid, a lot of feedback come from the contractors that, they were putting a lot of extra money in there for delays and everything because they couldn't get the pump and every stuff they needed in the lead time that, we were calling out. So we went back, we re-engineered some of the electrical, brought it back up to where it looks a lot better than what it did when we started with the different electrical engineer that CPNY has now. So we've cleaned a lot of that up. We are where we need to be electrical wise now. But when we went out to bid for it again, it just come back higher. I don't know what to say. I know there's a lot of work out there right now.
And this the second, so we still
the
have a
second
third
time.
one that we have to do after this one, right?
Yes. In our upgraded plans, yes. I will say, if we get another VFD, we, can start budgeting for another one. It's not something that, we need to do next year. Maybe not even the year after, depending on water usage. I would say probably about the time the town center is built out, we'll probably need to start looking then. But this will be the last VFD. This one's going to be expensive because it's a, variable frequency drive. Next ones will be straight line pumps.
So you're talking about the one after this one?
Yes. So we'll have 3 VFDs with this one. So the other 2 will just pull the 150 horsepowers out and probably put in 200 horse or whatever our demand calls for.
So what does staff recommend on this?
Well, right now, currently as of date, we have 325,387 left for this line, for this project here. So, to give you exact numbers on what we're looking at.
So again, what does staff recommend?
Well, the staff is uncertain what to do. We just wanted to be upfront with, we'll likely bring back a request to open the budget and add money to it. I would say in this case, though, I was talking with Mike and Stephen about this on separate occasions. And this for the same reason that if you buy a Vector truck for $350,000, it represents basically a 10% rate increase in the year that you buy it. This is a pay-go capital project. The water budget's a little bit bigger than the wastewater budget. I think if we had it to do over again, we would finance this thing, or we'd put it in our list of things to be financed in a bond. Because it's definitely got a long service life. So I don't know if there aren't opportunities to request a modification for an existing loan. We can look at that. I doubt it's possible, but it's anyway. So it was brought to the board's attention, just FYI at this point, and I think we'll come back with a recommendation next board meeting.
What's the lifespan on one of those pumps?
Depends.
Give me a best fit.
So I've had some that I've had to rebuild within 3 or 4 years. I've had some that's lasted over 10.
That's the pump. What about the VFD?
Usually the VFDs, I've had to replace one VFD a couple years ago, and I don't know what happened to it, but the VFD actually burned up. The pump and motor I sent in to get checked, it was not as bad as what they thought. They still went through it and everything just to check it all out. But the VFDs, I think that VFD drive was around $20,000.
So the VFD is not the motor.
No. That's what drives the motor. I would say the pump and motor, ballpark, I would say you're looking around 60,000 if you bought it new. When I go to rebuild them, I think they're like $15,000 for rebuild.
This is an electric component then. VFD?
Yes.
Well, if there are no other questions, Mr. President, that's my report.
I have,
You have anybody with any other questions?
annual hydrant,
Concerns?
annual hydrant testing began in November on the fire report. Been watching the difference between billed versus pumped. And we've had what I would call a fairly high percentage difference between those. Do we capture how much water is used in hydrant testing?
So I do not have that information yet, but I have talked to Chief Carroll about this and some other firemen. So I will get a good representation of about how much water they are flushing during their testing.
Okay, because if we're losing water someplace at that rate,
When he first
we need to find a cavern.
when he first come and said, "Hey, is this a good time to start flushing hydrants? We need to get out there for ISO rating. I just want to make you aware and make sure you don't have an issue with it." I said no, but we did have a long conversation about trying to capture that water loss.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. Do we need to go into executive session?
Yes.
Surprising to hear.
Um,
Okay.
So I would say that we don't need to go for item number 8.
Okay. Pursuant to section 551, .071 of the Texas Open Meeting Act, the board may consult with this attorney in executive session on a matter which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Open Meeting Act, or to seek advice of counsel on legal matters involving potential contemplating litigation or settlement offers. A, contractor breach performance and payment issues related to district contract with Weber Cadagua Partners for construction of wastewater treatment plant improvements. B, Trophy Club Mud One versus Arcadia Service LLC in the District Court of Tarrant County, 141, Judicial District Cause Number 141-299-351-18. C, agreement with Wilbo Solana LLC related to the partial release of easement rights and relocation of fire hydrant improvements. And D, claims for damages caused by district facilities and operations to property located at 1040 Trophy Club Drive in Trophy Club, Texas. We will now enter into executive session. It is 7:17. It is now 8:27. We're going to return to regular session. Item number 9, consider and take appropriate action on matters deliberated in executive session. Vice President Rose?
I move to approve an agreement relating to partial release of easement rights and relocation of fire hydrant improvements with Wilbo Solana LLC as presented at the dais.
We have a motion by Vice President Rose to approve a agreement related to the partial release of easement rights and location of fire hydrant improvements with Wilbo Solana LLC. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Director Chapman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 10, future agenda items. Nothing out of the ordinary. Item number 11, our next meeting is scheduled for, meeting is scheduled for July 21st, 2019, January 21st, 2019 at 6:30. If there's nothing else.
That's MLK Day, if that matters for anyone.
I move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. So moved. So accepted. So adjourned. It is 8:29 p.m. Trophy Club Mud One adjourns.